Okay, the clock has chimed. Number 200. The Lord is good, isn't he? Number 200. Let's stand and sing the best we can. Over this twice.
All right, Ezra. I assume it's in our notes. By the way, there's no more Ezras as far as the there's no more lessons. I pulled them all out, brother. There's nothing in the file cabinet. So, Mrs. Tucker, we have to make some copies of this. All right? And I don't know where the camera ready is. I may have even pulled it. So we have to do something about this and make some more lessons. All right. Tradition says Ezra is the author. It contains 10 chapters, a period of about 80 years. There's a gap between 6 and 7 in the count of where they count the return. There's a gap there. They did stop production on the building of the temple then. To record the faithfulness of God in reestablishing the Jews in their land. It teaches there's always a remnant. There's always a remnant. What would the remnant be today? I would assume the church, but judgment begins at the house of the Lord, Hebrews. You wonder how much of the church is filled with dirty birds. You know, as it says in Matthew 13, where the parables are, and the tree grows in this monstrous tree and is filled with birds. All right, the prediction of it. The names that are given before birth, we kind of added this. Cyrus, his name is given like 170 years. The amount of time we recorded, where it's actually predicted and the dates are given. It'll come up here in this lesson. It's like 100%, maybe not. Well, I got here 200 years predicted ahead of time. Cyrus, Jesus, his name is given before he's born. John the Baptist, his name is given before he is born. Those are the three names in the Bible that are given before the babies are born. All right, so predicted. We looked this stuff up, and all those verses on the prediction of Cyrus being the name. Now, to start, where we left off 2 weeks ago, all of Israel returns. All of Israel returns. First Kings. In fact, we'll keep your hand in Ezra. We'll go to Ezra 7:7. And there went up some of the children of Israel and of the priests and the Levites, singers and porters, and the Nethinims, unto Jerusalem in the 7th year of Artaxerxes the king. 1 Kings 12:23. See how those tie in together. 12:23. Speak unto Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, king of Judah, unto all the house of Judah and Benjamin, and say to the remnant of the people, saying, and I don't know what that has to do with anything, but let's go to 2 Corinthians 11. 2 Corinthians 11. All right, so there is some of the people. So there's a remnant, I guess that's what it is. There's a remnant that make it back. So what happened to the bulk of the people? They would intermarry. They were either killed, intermarried. And after 70 years, they put roots down in Babylon. They didn't want to go back. They already had a new home. Their children decided, hey, I'm not going. Why would I go back there? I don't have any memories of that. And so they stayed back. So 2 Chronicles 11, verses 14 through 16. For the Levites left their suburbs, their possessions, and came to Judah, Jerusalem, where Jeroboam and his sons had cast them off from executing the priest's office unto the Lord. And he had ordained him priests for the high places and for devils, for the calves which he had made. And after them, And after them out of all the tribes of Israel, such as set their hearts to seek the Lord, God of Israel, came to Jerusalem to sacrifice unto the Lord, God of their fathers. They go back. This could be, when we say Rehoboam, they went back after the division to worship at the right place. Ezra 6:17. He offered at the dedication of this house of God 100 bullocks, 200 rams, 400 lambs, and for sin offering for all Israel 12 he-goats according to the number of the tribes of Israel. So all of them. Verse 16, if we look at verse 16, and the children of Israel, the priests, the Levites, the rest of the children of the captive, kept the dedication of this house of God with joy. All right, Chronicles 15:9. And he gathered all Judah and Benjamin, and the strangers with them out of Ephraim, Manasseh, and sent out Simon. They fell to him out of Israel in abundance when they saw that the Lord his God was with him. They were heading back. Ezra 8:35. 8:35. These are those that are coming back. Also the children of those that had been carried away, which were come out of the captivity, offered burnt offerings unto the God of Israel. Here it is, 12 bullocks for all Israel, 90 and 6 rams, 70 and 7 lambs, 12 he-goats for a sin offering. All this was a burnt offering unto the Lord, according to the law. 2 Chronicles 30, verse 11. 30, verse 11. Nevertheless, divers of Asher, Manasseh, and of Zebulun humbled themselves and came to Jerusalem. So now we want to go to Zechariah. This would be also the return. Zechariah. We're talking just before the New Testament. Zechariah 8:13. The point is that they're going back. It came to pass that as you were cursed among the heathen, O house of Judah, the house of Israel, so will I save you, and ye shall be a blessing. Fear not, but let your hands be strong. So they were going, that's Jerusalem's restoration, them heading back. Zechariah, did I say 8? It's Zechariah 1:19, but it's the same thrust. They're heading back. 1:19, and I said unto the angel that talked to me, what be these? And he answered, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. All right, the scattering and now the return. And then Zechariah 10:6, and I will strengthen the house of Judah, I will save the house of Joseph, and I will bring them again to place them. For I have mercy upon them, and they shall be as though I had not cast them off, for I am the Lord their God and will hear them. And so some went south in Syria. Those that took these 10 tribes, Syria is taken by Babylon. They're absorbed by Babylon. They basically take over the world. Babylon does. Ezekiel, he ministers to the house of Israel during the captivity, during this time. Ezekiel 3, if we could turn there. 1-5. Moreover, he said unto me, Son of man, eat that thou findest. Eat this roll, go speak unto the house of Israel. I opened my mouth, and he caused me to eat that roll. He said unto me, all right, there are a few people that eat that stuff. Ezekiel's one. John eats the little book. It's sweet, and it goes down into his stomach. It becomes bitter. I believe it's in Revelation. Son of man, cause thy belly to eat, and fill thy bowels with this roll that I give thee. Then did I eat it, and it was in my mouth as honey for sweetness. And he said unto me, Son of man, go get thee unto the house of Israel, speak with my words unto them. For thou art not sent to a people of a strange speech and of a hard language, but to the house of Israel. So he didn't learn how to speak Babylon. He already knew how to speak Hebrew. He sent to the house of Israel, and he sent to the common people, where Daniel sent to the king's court in Babylon. All right, now the titles of the kings that show up in Ezra. The titles of the kings. Darius, Ahasuerus. Now I know whenever I would hear these names spoken on the radio, a lot of times they don't pronounce these words the same. But there's Darius, it means restrained. Ahasuerus means mighty. Artaxerxes, great kingdom. That's what their names mean. And that would be Darius, Ahasuerus, and Artaxerxes. What we're saying here is sometimes these are given not as their name, but as a title, like saying president or prime minister. So examples in the secular world would be Tartan, Caesar, and Pharaoh. So like there's several pharaohs, several Caesars, and so on that we're more familiar with. And so those titles are given. All right. The return, the temple started and stopped during Cyrus, on your notes there, from 539 to 530. The first return. Zerubbabel comes back, Joshua. It ties in with Joshua, and Haggai and Zechariah, those other minor, Haggai and Zechariah, the minor prophets there. One of them only preached for 3 months. That was it. And the preaching was to encourage them to get busy and rebuild the temple and finish the job. They hadn't finished the job. That ties in with Ezra chapters 1-4. During the years 530 to 521 BC, no work was done. They had put a stop to it. They send a letter, and Cyrus puts a stop to it until this investigation is over. Then Darius was from 521 to 486, and that's the time of Haggai and Zechariah, and that's Ezra chapter 4-6, and the temple then is completed then, up to then chapter 7. Then Xerxes reigns, and that's Ahasuerus too, from 486 to 465. That is when Esther takes place. That's just another side story that takes place during that time, and that's the entire book of Esther. Then Artaxerxes. reigns from 465 to 423. That's Ezra, Nehemiah, and Malachi. And so it's Ezra 7:1. After these things in the reign of Artaxerxes, king of Persia. Nebuchadnezzar's already gone. King of Persia is in there. Ezra, the son of Sariah, the son of Azariah, the son of Hilkiah. So that this is about 70 years after the temple was built. All right, and Nehemiah is the third return. So you got Zerubbabel, then you got Ezra returning, and then when Nehemiah returns, he is there to rebuild the wall. That's the third return. All right, so the reign of these individuals, these kings during this time. Ezra 4 verse 5. And hired counselors against them they hired people to frustrate their purpose in the days of Cyrus, king of Persia, even until the reign of Darius, king of Persia. So they wanted the work to stop. And so it's kind of like the political climate. They want things to stop because things aren't going their way. Like the border crossings. People want that to stop where others want it to go on. And so they fight about these things. So Darius, that's the second year Darius, again, Cyrus and Darius are named there in Ezra 4:5. Then in 4:6, in the reign of Ahasuerus, in the beginning of his reign, wrote they unto him an accusation against the inhabitants of Judah and Jerusalem. So they write another one. These letters are being written in verse 7, the same thing. Artaxerxes, verses 7 through 24 is when the building literally stops during that. And that time ties in with Esther, in Esther chapter 1. Let's see, let me find Esther, Nehemiah. Esther chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. This is that side story. It came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, this is Ahasuerus, which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia over 127 and 20 provinces, that in those days when the king of Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan the palace. He's giving historical facts. That's when the building is stopped. All right, we looked up at Artaxerxes there, Ezra 4, verses 7 through 24 is when the building is stopped. Darius, Ezra 6:1. This must be a different Darius. Ezra 6:1.
I saw Mordecai's name in there.
Say it again.
I saw Mordecai's name in there in the list of families.
A list of families
Back in chapter 2.
of what
Ezra.
book? Of Ezra?
Yeah, not to mess you up, but I thought it was interesting to see that.
Yeah, you know what? It does bring that up. I do recall that. Mordecai, I'm looking for it, scanning.
Verse 2.
Is it verse 2? Ezra chapter 1, verse 2:2? Ezra 2:2?
Yeah.
Ezra 2:2 was Zerubbabel, Jeshua, Nehemiah. Oh yeah, there's it is. Mordecai, yeah. Yeah. Okay, when he goes back. All right, he's got to get there somehow to be in and show up with in the book of Esther. All right. All right, Darius 6:1. Then Darius the king made a decree, and search was made in the house of the rolls where the treasures were laid up in Babylon. All right, so he's doing his own investigating. That would be the Library of the Congress, something like that, where records are kept, and so
The National Archives.
the National Archives, and they go look up these things, and Sometimes they look things up and they hide them in their pants and they hide them in their boots. Right? Don't some of these crooks go in there and get records that they're not supposed to have?
Oh, yeah, that was the Clinton guy, Sandy.
Yeah, he went in there and
Sandy Burglar.
he stuck it in his boot or in his pants.
Yeah,
He stuck something in there.
Sandy Burglar.
Yeah. Go in there. I mean, it's like a movie. I mean, it's crazy.
Was he a bad guy?
Very bad guy.
What was he trying to do?
He's trying to protect Clinton for something. I forget what it is. Protect these people. All this stuff's going to catch up to them. There is a judgment seat. God's got the real records, and all this stuff's going to catch up to
Did he
these.
get off?
I don't know. Well, don't they all?
Yeah, well,
Democrats get off. They pass the smell test. All right.
Yikes.
Yeah, yikes. All right, so Ezra 6:14. I don't feel like belaboring all this. These are just historical facts and lining up these things. Doctrinally speaking, I don't know how it would apply to us majorly. The elders of the Jews built it, and they prospered through the prophesying of Haggai. Notice the prophet is named. And Haggai, I think he only prophesies for like 3 months. The prophet and Zechariah, the son of Iddo, so they're named, and they built it and finished it according to the commandment of the God of Israel and according to the commandment of Cyrus and Darius and Artaxerxes, king of Persia. So they got corroboration from other kings in different eras that this construction is going forward. So, and it is 6:15. It's in the 6th year of the reign of Darius. So it's completed in the 6th year of Darius. In Artaxerxes, Ezra 7:1. 7:1, after these things in the reign of Artaxerxes, this is 70 years after the temple was built, king of Persia, Ezra the son of Seraiah, the son of Azariah, the son of, and so on. So it gives a history of what took place when the temple was rebuilt and so on, and who did it. The return under Zerubbabel, Ezra's not mentioned until chapter 7. The return under Zerubbabel is chapters 1 through 6, and the return under Ezra is chapters 7 through 10. Now, in my side notes that I have written Zechariah 4 verses 1 through 10. Why don't we just go there and see what that says? It may not say anything. Zechariah 4. No, I don't see anything there worth talking about. It's Zerubbabel's the first one to come. He is the last of the, he's at verse 9. Let's see what verse 9 has to say. The hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this house. His hands shall also finish it, and thou shalt know that the Lord of hosts hath sent me unto you. Well, the idea is Zerubbabel is a type of Christ. He's, and he is the last of the priests, I believe, the last, Zechariah. All right, these are those that return. Go to Ezra chapter 2. Ezra chapter 2, verses 1, where it begins all the way through verse 35. It gives the numbers of the people. Of the people that returned, of the whole congregation, was 42,360. Now, one time I had to sit for a long time at Cleveland Clinic, and I was being moved from one department to another department. And I decided in Numbers, where they give the numbering of the people, because they number the people, then they give the grand total. I made some side notes, and I wrote down all the numbers, and I decided to add them up. You know what I found out? God can count. And he came up with it. I came up with the same number that he came up with. So the math was right. There are people that investigate I'm not one to do that, but I had time on my hand. I was just sitting there. So I did the counting. So if you do all the counting through here, you should find out there's 42,360 go back. Of the priests, verses 36 through 39, you'll find 7,337. Those are that go back. Priests, that's 36 through 39 now of the priests. Of the Levites, where it begins, verse 36 says the priests. In verse 40 it says the Levites. And the remainder, the children of Solomon's servants, verse 55, that's given. All right, so I have in my side notes, the whole congregation, that's the 42,360. Of the priests, that includes the servants and maids, 7,337. So the total is 49,000, and then the Levites. The totals are given on the side, and then there's the remainder. But if you add them all up, it comes to 49,897. So we say it's approximately 50,000 people go back. 50,000 people. Well, we don't know how many went into captivity. It could be 1 million. It could be 2 million people that were killed or taken captive. So it's small compared to the entire population of Israel. So which lines up with the remnant that went back. Just a small portion of the people went back. Those that do not return. Ezra 1, verses 3 and 4. Who is there among you of all his people? His God be with him, and let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and build the house of the Lord God of Israel. He is the God which is in Jerusalem. And whosoever remaineth in any place where he sojourneth, let the men of his place help him with silver, and with gold, and with goods, and with beasts, beside the freewill offering for the house of God that is in Jerusalem. So those that stayed back helped those that went in return. Now, Ezra 7:13. There's two returns here in Ezra. One is the bulk of the people, 50,000 people. And then there's another return, a smaller return under Ezra himself. Ezra 7:13. I made a decree that all they of the people of Israel and of his priests and Levites in my realm, which are minded of their own free will to go up to Jerusalem, go with thee. So after the 70 years and the temple is built, there's still another plea made as to who wants to go can go. They get permission to return. All right, so 50,000 in number 11 there, 50,000 under Zerubbabel go, and Ezra 1 through Ezra 2, and the number is given. The altar is rebuilt first. Ezra chapter 3, verses 1 through 7. The altar is built first. And when the 7th month was come, and the children of Israel were in the cities, the people gathered themselves together as one man to Jerusalem. Then stood up Jeshua, which would be a name for Jesus. Jeshua, the son of Jozadak, and his brethren, the priests, and Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and his brethren, and builded the altar of the God of Israel to offer burnt offerings thereon, as it is written in the law of Moses, the man of God. And they set the altar upon his bases, for fear was upon them because of the people of those countries. Those that surrounded them did not like them. That would have been, as it were, in another era of the Samaritans with Nehemiah. They did not want Nehemiah there either. Even burnt offerings morning and evening. They kept also the Feast of Tabernacles, as is written, and offered the daily burnt offerings by number, according to the custom, as the duty of every day required. And afterward offered the continual burnt offering, both of the new moons and of all the set feasts of the Lord that were consecrated, and of every one that willingly offered a freewill offering unto the Lord. From the first day of the 7th month began they to offer burnt offerings unto the Lord, but the foundation of the temple of the Lord was not yet laid. They gave money also, unto the masons, and to the carpenters, and meat and drink and oil unto them of Zidon, and to them of Tyre, to bring cedar trees from Lebanon to the sea of Joppa, according to the grant that they had of Cyrus, king of Persia. Or they bring it to the sea. They probably put it on rafts and float it there and bring it there. But the foundation is not laid. They set up the altar first to start the worship service. I guess it's like camping. They didn't build a house, but they had to eat. And so you got to do what you got to do. But the worship service is the most important part. And so they do that first. The altar is first rebuilt. And then the work of the temple begins in the next verse, 3 verses 8 through 13. Now in the 2nd year of their coming unto the house of God at Jerusalem, in the 2nd month began Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and Joshua the son of Jozadak, and the remnant of their brethren, the priests and Levites, and all they that were come out of the captivity unto Jerusalem, and appointed the Levites from 20 years old and upward to set forward the work of the house of the Lord. So, to build something like that, what do you need? You need the land. You need the materials. You need an architect. You need a plan. You just don't start building. You need something on paper. And all that takes time. It's like building a house. If you're going to do it yourself, you buy the land, you have an architect, you have a picture, you have this vision, and you find out what's legal, what's not legal. You found out from the city fathers, they block the way, so you can't build what you want. Well, here the city fathers, and you got the neighbors, they block the way. It's illegal to build here, right? And isn't that like these communities? You can't, like in Walton Hills, you can't have, what is it you can't have? You can't have cattle?
Can't have a fence,
You can't have livestock? You can't have a fence?
except for Brother Dave.
Except for Brother Dave. Oh yeah, he does have a fence. Illegal. Oh, no, that's been grandfathered in. Your fence is grandfathered in. What is different than today? The city fathers come in, and there's got to be a set order to things. I mean, we're not saying that. But sometimes the rules and regulations, you wonder who makes up these rules.
You can't have Old Glory in your front yard.
You can't have what?
Old Glory.
Oh yeah, in some communities. So they get permission to return. They return the 50,000. They begin by building the altar, and then the work on the temple is begun. And you just don't snap your fingers and it's done overnight. The work is stopped under Ezra, in Ezra 4, verses 1 through 24. Now when the adversaries of Judah and Benjamin heard that the children of the captivity builded the temple unto the Lord God of Israel. Remember, there's no cell phones or telegraph. They can't get the word out there. Word spreads slowly. And when they heard it, then they came to Zerubbabel, the chief of the fathers, said to them, Let us build with you, for we seek your God as ye do, and we do sacrifice unto him since the days of Esarhaddon, king of Ashur, which brought us up hither. They wanted to help. And they said, no, verse 5, it says, they hired counselors against them to frustrate their purposes. They wanted to sabotage the whole thing. But we'll help you while they sabotaged. And I would assume Zerubbabel says, hit the road. Okay. I know they, in the cemetery next to us, one day we were eating dinner in the kitchen, and there was this enormous explosion. It shook the whole house, and I thought it was going to blow the windows out in the house. I mean, it was kaboom. And then there was an explosion, and it's this above ground. Was that a mausoleum where they bury them above ground? They were building this building. Who sabotaged it and why? Anybody want to guess? And we don't know if it's factual. I think they were building it with non-union people. And so the AFL-CIO, did he just recently die? The AFL-CIO?
Yes.
He just said, yeah. Now, when I was a kid, my dad always said the AFL-CIO is a communist organization. If you look it up in an old encyclopedia, they're communists. They're communists. Those that are running, I mean, it's Little Caesar. It's Al Capone. They're gangsters. And they take the cream off the crop, and if you're not in the union, you got to be in the union to get in the end to be able to have a job. And then you're cut out. It's just a bunch of, the whole thing, the whole system is thugs. It's just, and it's no different. They didn't want them there. They were adversaries. They wanted this building to stop. Oh, and I think they go, one of the letters states that if you check the records, it was just kings that ruled there, just made havoc for everybody around. We don't want them to rule and reign here. All they do is cause wars, and they convinced that, well, we better stop all this. They stopped the building so they could investigate all this. Now, if you're watching the news, and you're watching Fox, you're watching all that, and then they bring on their attorneys and their analysts, is everybody guilty and ready to go to jail? Everybody's guilty, ready to go to jail, and the hands of time grind this out, and in the end, they beat the clock till there's a new election. Everybody's off scot-free, and they hope it all just goes away. It takes years. It took years back in this day and age. And it's going to take years and years and years for nothing to ever happen. Nothing's going to happen. So it takes years and years, then they have to analyze this and investigate it and get some information before they finally reverse these decisions. The work is stopped under Ahasuerus. They have adversaries, verse 1. And the work begins again in Ezra 5. Ezra 5. Then the prophets Haggai the prophet and Zechariah the son of Iddo prophesied unto the Jews that were in Judah and Jerusalem in the name of God of Israel, even unto them. Rose up Zerubbabel, son of Zerubbabel, still around. The same, and began to build the house of God which is at Jerusalem, and with them were the prophets of God helping them. And so the prophets, those two prophets that were named, are helping them. They're encouraging them to go on. I mean, the building is kind of half done. And ever see buildings like that? They're half done and they never get finished. Usually what causes that? Building's half done and it never gets finished. The owner died. They went bankrupt. They run out of money. There are all kinds of reasons. A divorce. All kinds of things can happen. People get old and tired. Just old and tired. They never finish the project. And like I said, the gap in between here is like 70 years. That's a long time. And so the prophet comes along to encourage the people, get up, get out of bed, and get started again, right? Shake hands. We will preach in 15 minutes.